The sun beat down mercilessly on forward operating base Rhino as Lieutenant Sarah Reeves stepped off the Chinook helicopter, her rifle case slung over one shoulder and duffel bag over the other. Afghanistan's Kandahar province stretched before her, a harsh landscape of dust and mountains that had swallowed armies for centuries. She squinted against the glare, taking in the cluster of buildings and barriers that would be home for the foreseeable future. Colonel Meryl Tengisdal crouched with purposeful strides, her weathered face betraying none of the controversy surrounding Sarah's arrival. "Lieutenant Reeves, welcome to the edge of nowhere. How was your flight?" "Bumpy, ma'am," Lieutenant Reeves replied, dropping her bags to salute. "But I've had worse." "Haven't we all?" the colonel said with a tight smile. "Your reputation precedes you. 87 confirmed. That's quite a record." Sarah nodded once, neither proud nor apologetic. Those numbers represented lives, but also missions completed, comrades protected. "Just doing my job, ma'am." "Well, your job here might be the toughest yet." Colonel Tengisdal gestured toward a group of men gathered near the Tactical Operations Center. "That's the team you'll be training, SEAL Team 8. They've been operating in this region for 3 months, but they've lost 2 snipers to enemy fire. They need advanced training on local conditions." Sarah studied the men from a distance, their confident postures, the easy camaraderie, the unmistakable aura of elite warriors who'd proven themselves in the world's most dangerous places. "They don't look too happy about their new instructor." "They're not," Tengisdal said bluntly. Lieutenant Briggs made his objections quite clear, said his men don't need training from... She paused. Well, his exact words aren't worth repeating. Sarah had heard it all before. The Marine Corps Sniper School hadn't exactly rolled out the red carpet for her either. "I was trained by Captain James Murphy himself, ma'am." "Audie Murphy's grandson," Tengisdal nodded appreciatively. "I know your credentials, Lieutenant. That's why you're here despite the pushback." As they approached the group, conversations died. Eyes assessed her with barely concealed skepticism. Sarah recognized the look, the same one she'd faced at every posting, every mission, every time she shouldered her rifle in a world that still believed women couldn't master the art of long-distance killing. Lieutenant Commander Briggs stepped forward, his handshake perfunctory. "Lieutenant, we were expecting someone from Special Operations Command." "You got me instead," Sarah replied evenly. "I understand you lost men recently. I'm sorry." A muscle twitched in Briggs' jaw. "With all due respect, Lieutenant, my men need tactical support, not a training exercise." "That's exactly why Lieutenant Reeves is here," Colonel Tengisdal interjected. "Intelligence reports a high-value convoy moving through the Karengal Valley in 72 hours. Weapons, possibly chemical agents, heading to insurgent strongholds in the north." The atmosphere shifted immediately. Sarah felt the team's focus sharpen. "How many tangos?" asked the SEAL with a Texas drawl. "Approximately 60 fighters, heavily armed," Tengisdal replied. "The convoy will pass through a narrow mountain route here." She pointed to a map spread on a nearby table. "Perfect spot for an ambush, except for the numbers." Sarah studied the terrain, her mind already calculating angles, elevations, wind patterns. This was what she'd trained for since joining the Corps, the impossible shot, the mission others deemed unworkable. "One woman against 60? Someone muttered, just loud enough to be heard. Sarah didn't look up from the map. She'd heard worse. But as the sun set over the mountains that had witnessed empires rise and fall, she knew something these men didn't. In the world of precision warfare, it wasn't about how many bullets you fired, but where you placed them. And she never missed. The pre-dawn air bit at Sarah's exposed skin as she lay motionless on the rocky outcropping, her ghillie suit blending perfectly with the sparse vegetation. Below, the mountain pass waited in silence, the first hint of daylight barely illuminating its winding path. 18 hours she'd been here, alone by choice, waiting for a convoy that intelligence said would arrive at first light. Her earpiece crackled. "Reaper 1, this is Watchdog. Any movement?" Lieutenant Commander Briggs' voice carried an edge of impatience. "Negative, Watchdog," Sarah whispered, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. "Maintain radio silence unless essential." She heard his scoff before the line went dead. The SEAL team was positioned 2 kilometers back, ready to move in after she completed her part of the mission. Their skepticism had only intensified during the planning phase when she'd refused additional snipers. "I work alone," she told them. "Multiple shooters mean multiple sound signatures. They'll triangulate our position before we can neutralize enough targets." "1 woman against 60? Briggs had laughed. "This isn't a movie, Lieutenant." Colonel Tengestal had backed her play, but Sarah knew the SEALs were betting on her failure. She adjusted her scope minutely, checking the wind indicators she'd placed at various distances. The M40A5 felt like an extension of her body. The custom stock fitted perfectly to her frame. A distant rumble broke the silence. Sarah slowed her breathing, focusing her mind as she'd been taught. The first vehicle appeared around the bend, a battered Toyota Technical with a mounted machine gun. Through her scope, she counted 4 men, the gunner scanning the ridgelines nervously. 5 more vehicles followed, each packed with fighters. Sarah remained perfectly still, waiting for the entire convoy to enter the kill zone. Her mission wasn't to eliminate all 60 men, an impossible task for any single sniper. Her job was strategic chaos, take out key personnel and create enough confusion for the SEAL team to move in and secure the weapons. The last vehicle, a covered truck likely containing the chemical weapons, entered the pass. Sarah exhaled slowly, then squeezed the trigger. The driver of the lead vehicle slumped instantly, his head snapping back. Before anyone could react, Sarah had chambered another round and eliminated the radio operator in the second vehicle. Her third shot took out the machine gunner in the lead technical. No sound betrayed her position. The suppressed rifle and the echo of the mountains made it impossible to locate her. Panic erupted below as fighters scrambled for cover, firing wildly at the ridgelines. "Shots fired! What's happening?" Briggs demanded through the comm. Sarah didn't respond. She was in the zone now, moving methodically through her priority targets. 4th shot, the commander in the center vehicle. 5th, another radio operator. 6th, a fighter preparing an RPG. By her 12th shot, the convoy had descended into chaos. Vehicles crashed into each other as drivers were eliminated. Men fired blindly in all directions, some hitting their own comrades in the confusion. Then disaster struck. A lucky shot from below kicked up rock fragments near Sarah's position, sending a shard into her right eye. Pain exploded through her skull, blood streaming down her face. She bit down hard on her lip to keep from crying out. "Reaper 1, report," Briggs demanded. Sarah blinked blood from her left eye, forcing herself to refocus. 6 priority targets remained. The mission wasn't complete. "I'm hit, but still operational." "Pull back," Briggs ordered. "We're moving in." "Negative," Sarah replied, lining up her 13th shot despite the searing pain. Mission parameters unchanged. She eliminated the heavy weapons specialist in the rear guard, then the backup communications officer. The convoy was completely stalled now, fighters running for the cover of nearby rocks. Through her scope, Sarah spotted a man in the back of the weapons truck frantically working with what appeared to be a detonator. If he triggered it, the chemical agents could be released, contaminating the entire valley. Her vision blurred. The blood loss was affecting her accuracy. She had one chance to make this shot count, a shot that would determine whether 60 insurgents or thousands of civilians would die today. Sarah steadied her breathing, remembering Lieutenant Audie Murphy's words to her grandson who had passed them to her. "Fear doesn't make you a coward. Acting despite fear makes you brave." The detonator operator crumpled, Sarah's bullet finding its mark despite her compromised vision. Her 18th shot, her final round, neutralized the last priority target, a fighter preparing to launch an RPG at the approaching SEAL team. She lowered her rifle, the metallic taste of blood filling her mouth as she fought to remain conscious. "All targets down," she whispered into her comm. "Convoy secured, weapons intact." The SEALs moved with practiced precision, sweeping through the disabled convoy like shadows. From her elevated position, Sarah watched them secure the chemical weapons and round up the surviving fighters. No casualties on the American side. Mission accomplished. She tried to stand but collapsed, the blood loss and adrenaline crash hitting her simultaneously. The world tilted sideways as she pressed a field dressing against her eye. Strange, she thought, how quiet everything seemed now. Reaper 1, we need your position for medevac. Briggs's voice had lost its edge of condescension. Sarah managed to relay her coordinates before darkness claimed her. She awoke 3 days later in the field hospital at Bagram Airfield, her right eye bandaged. Colonel Tengistal sat beside her bed, reading through mission reports. "Welcome back, Lieutenant," the colonel said, setting aside her papers. "The doctors say you'll keep the eye, though your depth perception might be affected." Sarah nodded slightly, her throat too dry for words. The chemical weapons were VX nerve agent, enough to kill everyone within 50 kilometers of where they planned to use it. Intelligence estimates civilian casualties would have been in the thousands. A nurse brought water, helping Sarah take small sips. "The team?" she finally managed to ask. "Unharmed and unusually quiet," Tengistal replied with a hint of a smile. "Lieutenant Commander Briggs has been here twice to check on you." Sarah closed her good eye, remembering the chaos she'd created with 18 precisely placed shots. Not 87 new kills to add to her record. That had never been the objective. Strategic targets only, minimizing collateral damage while maximizing tactical advantage. A week later, cleared to move around the base but not yet for duty, Sarah found herself approached by Briggs and 3 of his men in the mess hall. She braced herself for the usual backhanded compliments she'd received throughout her career. Instead, Briggs placed something on the table before her, a custom-made eye patch with the SEAL Team 8 insignia embroidered on it. "The men wanted you to have this," he said, his usual bravado subdued. "Figured it might come in handy until you're fully healed." Sarah picked up the eye patch, running her thumb over the intricate stitching. "Thank you." "We've been doing this a long time," Briggs continued, choosing his words carefully. "Seen a lot of operators come and go. What you did up there," he shook his head. 18 shots, 18 critical targets, with a compromised position and an injury that would have sent most of us into shock. One of the other SEALs, the Texan, leaned forward. "Ma'am, we'd be honored if you'd consider joining us for some advanced training exercises. Seems like we might have a thing or two to learn from you." The invitation hung in the air, significant in its departure from military tradition. Female operators weren't typically invited to train elite male units. They were tolerated at best, undermined at worst. 2 months later, Sarah stood before a new class of sniper candidates at Quantico, her eye patch now a permanent fixture. The scar tissue had healed, but her depth perception remained compromised, enough to end her career as an active sniper, but not enough to remove her from service entirely. Precision isn't about how many shots you take. It's about understanding that each bullet carries with it the weight of consequence. A young female Marine raised her hand. "Lieutenant, is it true you stopped a convoy of 60 fighters with just 18 shots?" Sarah studied the woman, eager, determined, probably facing the same doubts and dismissals she once had. "The number doesn't matter," she replied. "What matters is that when everyone tells you something's impossible, you find the angle they haven't considered." As she surveyed the class, Sarah noticed Colonel Tengistal observing from the doorway, alongside a visitor she recognized immediately, Lieutenant Commander Briggs. He nodded respectfully, a silent acknowledgement that some battles change more than just the battlefield. Sarah touched her eye patch briefly, then continued her lesson. The legend of what happened in that mountain pass had already grown beyond her control, but the truth was simpler than the stories. 1 woman, 18 shots, thousands of lives saved. And a reminder that courage isn't measured by who you are, but by what you're willing to do when everything is at stake.